Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Hump Day edition of the Yard. It is just after midnight here in Starkville. It has been an eventful day around the state of Mississippi due to the weather. I hope that you all are safe and had no property damage. But a lot of people out there really had some issues. And so if you're one of those, our thoughts and prayers go out to you. It's that time of year. You know, we're starting to see warmer weather get here. I think it was 85 earlier this week. Not real happy about that. But that's the life and times we choose, right? So if you had to deal with that, I apologize on behalf of the rest of us that didn't. I tell you, we had some weather here too. There was some. I won't say tornadic weather, but man, I tell you what, there was a major thunderstorm that came through Starkville. It's a good thing we weren't playing a ball game here. I know they played one up the road, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the show. But, a lot of things going on around the state. A lot of good things happening with Mississippi State Athletics. As you guys know, men's and women's, tennis both made the tournament. I believe that's correct. And then, we've got some other teams playing for postseason as well. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that Coach Ricketts' softball ladies won the series against South Carolina over the weekend. It has been a bit of a frustrating SEC schedule for the softball program, but they pick up a win here a couple weeks ago in the league and then picked up a couple over the weekend against South Carolina. It's interesting. You know, we had such a great start to the year last year, didn't get into conference play, kind of a similar thing this year. But I believe Coach Ricketts is going to do a good job for us, and I think it's really just a matter of time before that program gets going in the right direction. And I like Tyler Bratton a lot. They're recruiting very, very hard, and they believe that they've got some good players coming in. So now the Bulldogs, currently 27-22 overall and 3-15 in the conference, 17-6 at home and 9-15 on the road. Not a lot left, obviously, but listen, we got to make some hay here. Try to find a way to get in the tournament. I think we all kind of recognize the fact that it's a little bit of a rebuild for us. I don't know if we fully expected that. I mean, I don't know if where pitching was expected to be, but when you've got Fa and you've got Mia, you got a chance. And so maybe we've turned the corner a little bit here. Maybe we'll be a little hotter down the stretch, but you're good to get that win on the road in South Carolina. We lose the first game 8-7. And then win 6-2 and 7-1. It'll be Tennessee and Starkville today. We're going to play a doubleheader in Starkville. And then we'll play Georgia in a 3-game set this weekend. And then the SEC tournament will be here. So not much left in the regular season. And so hopefully the Bulldogs can kind of find some momentum late and kind of keep things going there from South Carolina. I know many of you really enjoy going to those games. I've had some friends of mine that tell me they never expected to be softball fans, but next thing you know, their daughters are playing high school softball, so there is a vested interest in the sport of softball. They love to go. It's free to get in at News Park. They go and they enjoyed the fast-paced action. If you've ever watched a softball game, things happen pretty quick. They absolutely do. So if you're in town, maybe perhaps go by and check them out and and go by and support them. They could certainly use that. And speaking of support, I want to thank you guys too. I don't know if you guys know this, but all 3 books that I've written so far that have been published have all been on the Mississippi bestsellers list, and that's kind of a dream come true. We're 3 for 3. Of course, the 4th book will be out June the 7th, Blooms of Oleander. It's not a sports book, even though I do have a short story in there about me and my dad that references some Mississippi State stuff. It's not a sports book per se, but some cool things in there. I'm very, very proud of it. Listen, it's one of those things, too. I kind of did this one on my own. And so probably made some mistakes along the way, so I ask that you forgive me of that. But a couple things, I read it again last night. There were a couple things I would have changed in the edit, but it's done now. I guess that's kind of the beauty of art, right? I mean, you get it one way and you feel good about it and you submit it. And a couple grammatical things that I caught that wish I would have caught in the final edit, but nothing major. Just a comma out, missing here, and maybe there's a question mark where there shouldn't be. But I'm excited about it. And my sister Reagan, for those of you that don't know, my sister Reagan came to Mississippi State to be an artist. And my dad died, and she elected to move home to be with her mom, which was the right decision. She's always been very artistically inclined. And so I asked her to design the cover. And so we're going to do this again at some point. I haven't officially asked her yet, but I just recently, one of the things that I always do for myself is once a book is put into publication, it goes off to print, I go ahead and make a movie poster of the cover and hang it up on the wall around here. What's the point in having some rocks if you can't throw one every once in a while? But we'll do another one here in a couple of years. Maybe next year. We'll see. It kind of depends on how well this one does. But early returns are really good, very favorable. A lot of excitement among bookstores and you guys as well. So if you're looking for the current books, that's Flim Flam, Alpha Dogs, and Stark Villains, you can find them at alphadogsthebook.com. You can get all three of them right there. And you can get them personalized. So Mother's Day is coming up. Father's Day is coming up. Many of you are thinking, what can I get Mom? What can I get Dad? Well, if you've got big Bulldog fans in your life that read, or maybe they don't read, maybe you want them to read, maybe they need to read, you can go get those books right there. And then the book Blooms of Oleander, going to be available in 3 different formats. Going to be the hardback edition, going to be a paperback edition, and also an ebook. And you'll be able to get those at great Mississippi bookstores, but also, too, through Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. And that'll take a few weeks to kind of get that stuff done. So it's all in the can. We're just kind of waiting on, things to kind of run through that process. I'm in contact with the publisher every single day, it seems, despite the fact the writing process being over. But they're keeping me updated. There's always copyrights and ISBN numbers and Library of Congress stuff. There's all kind of stuff that goes into this stuff. And by me not publishing the other 3, there's some things that I learned this time through that were valuable lessons, I guess you could say. And I've got a greater appreciation from for Paul Brown. Paul's the guy that has really helped me and been really a mentor to me and ensured that the first 3 books were published. And he handled all the business side of that stuff. I didn't have to deal with it. And so really grateful for Paul, because there are a lot of times, too, when I would get kind of hung up on something, I could say, hey, Paul, what do you think about this? And then, Paul could kind of walk me through it. This has been a little different. Even though Paul's helped with some things, this has been really kind of live without a net for me. But I've enjoyed the process and looking forward to you guys having a chance to read it. I have shared some sneak previews with some people to very good returns. And these are not just people that are always going to blow smoke up my skirt. And so I think you guys are going to enjoy it. And it's, again, a lot of it's very personal. Some of it's autobiographical. Some of it's just stuff that I was inspired to write. I'm one of those kind of people that when I'm riding around, there's always things in my head. And so I put them in the notes on my phone, and then I'll go back and work on them, and I'll make something out of them. And I had all this stuff just kind of laying around that I had written, and I thought, I ought to do something with this. And so Blooms of Oleander was born. So looking forward to you guys having that, looking forward to having that on the market. And again, I'm not going to tour heavily for this one like I did the 3 sports books. We'll do some things. We're going to do a launch party in early June downtown Starkville at Book Martin Cafe. So if you're in the area and you'd like to come by and get copies right away, come by, maybe meet me or whatever, you can do that. And I'll have details on that as we get a little bit closer. So they're making the arrangements now. The book is set to be published on June 7th, and then shortly thereafter, we will have the launch party right here in Starkville, Mississippi. We'll have a book reading and answer questions and that sort of stuff. And so looking forward to all that. Those are things that years ago just kind of seemed like a dream to me, and now they're pretty much part of my everyday life. Seems like there's always somewhere to be and something to do, and I'm always signing books, it seems. And many of those online orders, about once a week, I got to go over there and sign books. And so there's plenty of those to go around. So again, if you're looking for them, reach out and get them. And I was in the lounge on Saturday. And I don't get to do that very often. And I shared that with you guys on the show on Monday. But I had people that stop me and say, hey, Steve, I've always wanted to read your books. What order should I read them in? And I'll just tell you, whatever order you want. They're not necessarily written chronologically. So if you want to read Alpha Dogs because, maybe you want to read about Jake Mangum and Rafael Palmeiro, you can do that. Then you can work your way back to Stark Villains. I would read them in the order they were written. Flim Flam was first, and then Stark Villains, and then Alpha Dogs. But I have a lot of people that got Alpha Dogs as their first book of mine, and they're kind of working backwards. So you can do that. You don't have to read them in order. You won't have missed anything. I kind of wrote them with that in mind. So again, that's Alpha Dogs, the book. And a lot of you guys continue to ask about the Stark Villain shirts because they're popping up on TV. And that is a really cool thing. And I think Angel and Ashley camp the most for that because they have been cited multiple times behind home plate during broadcast, and every time I get a text message or people find me on social media and say, "Hey, Steve, I see somebody on camera with a Stark Villains shirt. Where do I get one of those?" Well, you go to starkvillains.com, and you can get them in multiple sizes or colors or whatever you'd like there. And we're working on some other things there. Maybe making some changes to the shirt business here in the months to come. But for right now, you can find it at starkvillains.com. Go check it out today. Appreciate you guys and all your support all these many years. Speaking of support, Bulldog Burger Company, not only do they support me and this show, they support the greater Starkville community. Bulldog Burger has been a great partner for me. I'll tell you, not just because of the fact that they're local, but because it's just a quality operation. And every time I have a conversation with John Bean, it's always, hey, things are going great at Bulldog Burger Company. Even one of the things that I loved is even when our community was at need during the quarantine, they made it as easy as possible to do business. They did curbside service. You could call in. You could do online orders, and you can still do that. Go to eatwithus.com, and you can order from Bulldog Burger Company. You can order from the Sweet Peppers Grill or Harvey's, Central Station Grill. Matter of fact, I ate there earlier this week. Love going to that place. We really do. So Bulldog Burger Company, though, is that's one of those things, too, where it's a great night out for the family where you're not going to break the bank. And more times than not, you're going to bring food home with you because the portions are so generous. So go check them out today. Have the full of bologna. Matter of fact, I'm starting to get some testimonials from you guys. Hey, Steve, I tried it. 2 people tell me they love the chow chow. One person said they preferred it without the chow chow. That's the cool thing. You can get it either way. Go check that out today. But again, I'm on that grilled chicken club. I think the last 3 times now, that's what I've gotten is the grilled chicken club because it is so great. You will enjoy it too. And always have the spring rolls when you go. They'll make you better looking. We all need more of that, don't we? We all want to be more beautiful. It takes a lot of work for me to be this beautiful. I got to have all these tattoos in his hair. Some of you, it's natural for you, but I got to work hard at it. So those spring rolls are a nice addition for me to my beauty regimen. 2 locations to serve you right now. University Drive right here in Stark Vegas, and then Gloucester Street in Tupelo. And coming soon to Central Mississippi. All you folks in Ridgeland and Madison, go ahead and get ready. It'll be here before you know it. They're in the process of hiring and getting people trained. It's going to be absolutely wonderful. And got an experienced manager down there. Ian Few is a great guy, man. I've gotten to know Ian really well the last few years. Really appreciate him and all the things that he's done to kind of help me. But he's going to be down there. I'll miss him being here, but he'll do a great job down there for you folks. Again, that's Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. MEAT. All right, so let's get you guys up to date on what happened in SEC baseball on Tuesday. Of course, Mississippi State plays the Citadel on Wednesday. We will preview that here shortly. But looking around the league, there were a couple of games that were canceled due to weather, and that's North Florida at South Carolina, and then UAB at Auburn. And it seems like Auburn's had a little tough time with weather this year. They've lost a ton of one-run games, and they've lost the opportunity to play some winnable non-conference games due to weather. I don't think those games will be made up either. I think Auburn's just kind of in one of those situations. They're not going to, to reschedule those games. And so Butch and those guys are just going to have to continue to play hard and hopefully win some games in the SEC tournament. I think we all kind of see where this year is going for Auburn. I do think that they'll be a better team next year, so we'll see. But some big results. The first one that really jumps out to you is Louisville 7, Vanderbilt 2. And for those of you that are keeping up with such, Vanderbilt has now lost 4 of 6, dating back to their loss to us. It's incredible to think about that. We would beat them on Saturday, they lose on Sunday, then they lose 2 out of 3 over the weekend to Florida, and then drop a ball game to Louisville. And those are all 3 teams that are expected to be in the NCAA tournament. It really does appear that Vanity's beginning to fade. Now, they should get right this weekend with Alabama. But this is a Vanderbilt team that I think is very vulnerable. We've had some discussions over on the genespage.com message board. Somebody kind of trolling a little bit brings up that he thinks Jack Leiter's not good. Jack Leiter is a machine. But there have been, some chinks in the armor here, or kinks in the armor, here in the last month or so. Vanderbilt has lost Jack Leiter's last 3 starts. And somebody brought up to me and says, well, hey, what about our starters? What does that say about our starters? Well, I'll tell you what it says about them. Christian McLeod, we have won 2 of his last 3 starts. Will Bednar, we've won 2 of his last 3 starts. And Jackson Fristow, we've won 2 of his last 3 starts. Now, those guys haven't gone as deep in ball games as we have wanted, and we certainly would like to see them pitch better. But we're still winning ball games. And so it's not really a good comparison there. I think it is impossible to ignore the fact that something is wrong with Jack Leiter. I ran the numbers today, too. In his last 3 starts, Jack Leiter has allowed 8 home runs. 8. And you say, well, Steve, is that a lot? Well, let me put it to you this way. Mississippi State's got one pitcher that has allowed more than 8 the entire season, and that's Christian McLeod. He gave a bunch to Arkansas. And so that's a lot of home runs in a short time for Jack Leiter. And so if you're Vanderbilt and you're Tim Corbin, you got to start getting a little concerned about this because, okay, you've got Kumar Rocker out there who was an absolute freak on Friday nights. And after watching him pitch in person, I can tell you TV doesn't do it justice. To see a guy that big and that athletic, kind of shove as well as he does, I mean, that's a guy that is going to pitch for a long time. And he's a guy, too, because he's so big, he hides the baseball so well and it's on you so quickly. But you begin to think, okay, well, we can count on that win, but where's the other wins come from in a regional format? Where do the other wins come from in a super regional format? And so I think Vandy is very vulnerable right now. And I think unless they can get Jack Leiter back on track, they're in real danger of not making it to Omaha. I know a lot of people are projecting them to make Omaha. I would tell you right now, if I had to bet money today, I would bet that Vanderbilt does not make it to Omaha. Despite the fact they've had this great frontline pitching most of the year, but as we have seen, they're pretty pedestrian when they don't get elite pitching on Friday and Saturday nights. And you could say, well, Steve, that's the case for everybody. Well, yeah, that offense they have is kind of anemic at times. When you're only giving up 1 to 2 runs a ball game, you're going to win more times than not. Well, now that's not happening. Now you got to get out there and go score some runs. And then you got guys like Will Bednar on Saturday. There are a lot of people out there to have a quality number 2. And then Sunday pitching has been a complete disaster for Vanderbilt at times. And it makes us even madder that we didn't get them on that Sunday. So they lose another ball game to Louisville here. And now you begin to kind of really take a look at this and say, you know what? This Vanderbilt team is not what it has been. And we all kind of knew that. We've talked about it on the show most of the year. This is not the same team that they have been. But a lot of those woes offensively have kind of been covered up by the fact that they have kind of held people down to a couple runs ball game. All right, let's look ahead. Stetson and Florida. Florida, of course, does take 2 out of 3 from Vanderbilt. They take care of Stetson down in Gainesville, 9-6. This Florida team, too, has a chance to kind of right a lot of wrongs. You may recall Florida was the preseason number 1 in most polls and picked to win the SEC. This is still a very, very talented team. Leftwich is absolutely filthy. And when Mace is on, he's absolutely filthy as well. And so you're starting to see Florida begin to kind of figure some things out. They were embarrassed. They got swept by South Carolina. And that's when a lot of people said, hey, well, South Carolina's a lot better than we thought, and Florida maybe not as good as we thought. I think now you look at that and say, you know what? These two teams are headed in opposite directions. Maybe Florida's getting it figured out, and people have figured South Carolina out. I hope that's the case because we need to go up there and win a couple ball games this weekend. But don't be the least bit surprised if Florida doesn't make a real strong run at this thing here at the end of the regular season. Of course, they end the year at Arkansas, and then that'll be an absolute dogfight. I mean, if you're a guy that's not going to games and you want to sit around and watch college baseball all weekend, you watch Mississippi State play on the tube, but then flip over and watch Florida and Arkansas play. That could be a series that goes a long way in determining the postseason pecking order too. Arkansas hadn't lost a series all season, but there have been several opportunities to sweep, and they've lost a Sunday game. I think it's just really a matter of time, especially the fact they don't have shutdown pitching. They've got that great offense, but there will be a day when they run into a pitcher that is going to be outstanding. Maybe that's Kumar Rocker. Who knows? Maybe that's in Hoover. But I believe there are going to be some ball games that they have an opportunity to lose, and I think that Florida series is absolutely huge. So don't count Florida out yet. It's a very talented team, again, that I think is really beginning to play its best baseball. Texas A&M goes on the road to UT Arlington, and they win the ball game 8-4. Of course, A&M hosts Ole Miss this weekend. I touched on this a little bit on Monday. And maybe this is just really a credit to Rob Childress. Rob Childress' team played exceptional against Mississippi State. They absolutely did. And I asked Chris Lamonis about it. I had a chance to interview Chris for a story I wrote for the membership over at Gene's page, about going home for the Citadel. Chris, of course, played at the Citadel and was a assistant coach there. Spent 17 years there in Charleston. But you begin to kind of break this thing down, and Rob Childress is one of those guys who's kind of a blue-collar guy. We talk about teams taking on the personality of their coach. That's kind of what you got with A&M. They've had some tough luck this year, but they're still playing with a lot of effort. Those guys still believe, you know what, if we can get to Hoover, anything can happen. We can string some wins together here at the end and get into the field at Hoover, we've still got a chance to extend our season. And I didn't think they shied away from competition at all last weekend against us. I mean, I was so impressed with Boss, the left fielder. It seemed like he was making a diving catch every time I turned around. He robbed us of extra bases over and over and over again. One of the best left fielders that I've seen this year at Dudy Noble Field, and really on the road too. I mean, I've covered a lot of ball games, but I think Boss is a guy that is a phenomenal player. And so I think A&M is going to be one of those teams down the stretch. While they may not win a series, I think they're good enough to take a game from just about anybody. And they're going to be at home this weekend. Of course, when we get into Friday's show, we'll kind of preview the weekend. A&M and Ole Miss will play head-to-head down there. I won't be the least bit surprised if A&M takes a game. I will be surprised if they take the series, but I will not be the least bit surprised if they take a game from Ole Miss. Those are the things you kind of look at, for sure. And speaking of Ole Miss, they survive a late comeback from Arkansas State. I quit watching the game at 7-2 when it seemed like the Arkansas State pitching staff was going to walk the ballpark. It really got away from them there in the fourth inning. It was a 2-0 game after the top of the third. Arkansas State leading, they left a couple guys on base and had a chance to really kind of stretch it out. And then Ole Miss responds, takes a 4-2 lead. Chatinier had a big hit. And then in the fourth inning, it all kind of fell apart for Arkansas State. And so it's an 11-2 game, and everybody thinks, okay, this thing is in the barn. But it wasn't. Lo and behold, and I know, shocker, right? The Ole Miss bullpen nearly blows it. In the sixth inning, Arkansas State puts 8 runs up on the board. 8. Now all of a sudden, it's one of those things you look at. It's an 11-10 ball game, and it's like, holy smokes, how did this happen? Ole Miss responds and scores a couple of runs there in the 6th and 7th. And then there in the 8th, Arkansas State climbs back in. In the 9th, they actually got the tying run to the plate. Just couldn't get the big hit there. They did score 1 there in the 9th and also had 3 errors in the ball game. So they didn't play clean, but they had 16 hits. And you begin to look down here, this is kind of a Johnny Holstaff day for Ole Miss, but they have been really high on this Morrell kid, and he gives up 3 runs. They're high on the Forsyth kid, and he goes a third of an inning and gives up 5 earned runs. And so you begin to look at this thing and you think, okay, you use your midweek game to try to build some depth and try to find some guys you can trust and try to get some work for some guys. And you're just thinking, okay, let's go out here and get an inning for that guy, an inning for that guy. And you end up throwing basically, I think, 10 pitchers before it was all said and done. I mean, those are 9 pitchers, excuse me. It's incredible to think about that. How does that happen? Arkansas State, and God bless Tommy Raffo and all those home runs he hit for Mississippi State. He's been in Jonesboro for a long time. But this is not a good Arkansas State team. They're just not. And then they go to Oxford, and they gave Ole Miss really all they wanted. I think Ole Miss coasted a little bit. But if you're an Ole Miss guy, and thank God that I'm not, you got to begin to wonder here, are we even good enough to get out of a regional with this bullpen? I mean, are you going to have Nikhazy? Are you going to have Hoglund go out there and throw 7, 8, 9 innings just to get a victory and save the bullpen? As I've said many times on this show, I had a college baseball insider tell me at the beginning of the year, Mississippi State's going to win a lot of games because of the bullpen. Ole Miss is going to lose some games because of theirs. It's been absolutely true. Outside of Broadway, I don't know if they have anybody that you look at and say, you know what, this guy can really get it done. Austin Miller pitched pretty good for him tonight, but by and large, I think an Ole Miss person looks at the game, even though they won, and probably feels like that it's a failure. I mean, the same issues continue to plague this team. And at this point, it's kind of their identity. You kind of look at Mississippi State and say, you know what? We're not getting enough value out of our starting pitching outside of Will Bednar. And you'd like to get another inning out of him. You get 5, and it seems like that's kind of like the end of his endurance. And so basically you're looking at your starting pitchers as openers. But if you look at your Ole Miss and you think, my gosh, we can't go to the bullpen. If you're Mississippi State, you're thinking, hey, once we get in the bullpen, we got the game. That's how you feel. And on the other side of the coin, you're thinking, oh, my gosh, we need the starters to go 8 innings. Or we need a big offensive showing. Because we can't trust the bullpen. And that's kind of where things are. All right, let's take a quick look at the Citadel. Since we have an opportunity to have a show on game day here, the Citadel is not good. Okay, so and it's going to be a Johnny Holstaff day for us. Cade Smith going to get the start. We expect him to be a guy that challenges for a weekend spot next year. Really talented guy. Probably a guy that wouldn't be here if we had had a full draft last year. But I'm not exactly sure who the Citadel's going to throw. There's nobody that I would look at on this roster, especially as a midweek guy, and say, you know what, that guy's going to give us some trouble. The Citadel currently 11-28 on the year and 3-17 in the conference. Just not a lot you look at here and say, you know what, these guys are a concern for us. And obviously they have not seen the caliber of pitching they're going to see from us, even in the midweek. So let's run it down real quick here just to kind of give you guys an idea of the quality of play. They've lost 8 games in a row. They've won 1 game away from their home field. So they're 1-11 on the year outside of Charleston. Obviously, they've won 10 games there at home. But so they begin the year, and they lose the first series to Longwood, the Longwood Landers, if you're wondering. The next weekend, they lose the series to North Florida, also in Charleston. They go to Jacksonville, the former school of current Bulldog Scotty DeBrule, and they win a ball game there. They come back and lose a series to North Carolina A&T. The Sunday game was a 12-1 deal. They hang in there with South Carolina for a while. They lose that ball game 11-7. They bounce back the next weekend and they sweep Davidson. Pretty impressively, I might add. They get Wofford the next weekend. They lose 2 out of 3 to Wofford. They go to Columbia and get beat 8-3 by South Carolina. They lose both games on a weekend in Western Carolina up there at their place, the Catamounts. They get swept by Mercer in Charleston. They lose to College of Charleston 5-4 in a midweek game. They lose 3 to Samford, and outside of the Friday game, none of those games were close. I think that was the SoCon opener, or maybe I guess Mercer was. I guess that's 3 weekends in. My apologies. They play Jacksonville again, and they beat them in 11, 3-2. Guess they have the Dolphins numbered this year. East Tennessee State, they win that series, best 2 out of 3. They lose at home to College of Charleston 11-2. They get swept by North Carolina Greensboro on the road. They play South Carolina again. I guess that's just an easy game to play. It's just a couple hours away. Lose that game 9-5. They play Virginia Military Institute last weekend at home and got swept. 13-5, 9-5, 5-4. And so you can see they have not really played a lot of competition outside of maybe South Carolina. They have not really played anybody. You say, you know what, hey, that's a good win. So this is really about, Lamonis kind of paying his alma mater back a little bit, bringing a great team in there and having a chance, obviously, to pick up a midweek game while we're on the road at South Carolina. It's pretty rare for us to take a long road trip like this. But, classes are out. Graduation's already taken place. And so they arrived on Tuesday, went out and had a dinner on the town. They'll get down to business on Wednesday, spend the night, Wednesday night there in Charleston, and have a chance to spend some time that morning in Charleston, to kind of downtown. They'll have a nice meal, and then they'll head over to Columbia and have practice on the South Carolina field on Thursday evening. And then we'll get ready to play a ball game on Friday, and I will be there. I'll drive up Friday morning. And so your Thursday night show, which will serve as your Friday show, may actually go a little earlier. So if it hits your Apple or your Google Play app Thursday night, you'll know why. Because I'm trying to get into bed because I got to get up early and get on the road to go chase the Bulldogs out there. So let's get a little deeper into who the Citadel is here. And I know many of you, let me go ahead and tell you guys too, this game is going to be broadcast on ESPN Plus. So it's not the regular ESPN app. So there may be a subscription fee involved if you want to watch it. And maybe you don't want to deal with that. Maybe just put the radio on. And I've had so many people that have said, hey, well, Steve, I can't listen to the radio because I live out of state. If you go to healthstate.com and you pull up the baseball schedule, there's going to be a little speaker there, and you can listen for free. You just go click the button, and the audio player pops up, and you can listen to Jim Ellis and Jay Powell or Ron Polk, whoever's doing color this week, for free. So you can listen to the ball game. So if you don't want to pay the ESPN Plus subscription to watch the game as it streams, or maybe perhaps you don't have good internet service, you can listen to the game. So that's handled. Okay, so let's look at the Citadel here. Season statistics for them, really not good. And so, looking at the numbers here, as a team, they have hit 278. Their opponents have hit 280. Obviously, they've been outscored. They wouldn't have all these losses. They have hit 25 home runs as a team and allowed 33. They've allowed a lot of extra base hits, to be honest with you. 79 doubles, 11 triples, 33 home runs. They have also hit 24 batters, but they have a tendency to get hit themselves. They've been hit 51 times, probably means they're crowding the plate a little bit, so we got to be careful with that. Just be something to be mindful of as you watch the game on Wednesday night. They don't really run the bases exceptionally well, just 36 of 48 in stolen bases. They do have a couple of guys, Ryan McCarthy being one, that is pretty skilled, 10 of 11, and then Jeffrey Brown, this is a guy that's their leading hitter, 7 of 12. But outside of that, it's spread around pretty good. Tyler Corbett, 7 of 7. So they kind of steal kind of as a as a bonus, I guess you could say. When you're struggling offensively, you got to move runners as best you can. So they may get out and try to run a little bit. I don't know if you really want to test Logan Tanner. Luke Hancock might have actually started catcher. We've been done that a lot during the midweek to kind of save a little wear and tear on Logan. And you guys know he caught both ends of a doubleheader on Saturday. And then we had the extended 12-inning game on Friday. So, he caught, 30 innings in about, 36 hours, 34 hours, something like that. That's a lot of wear and tear on a guy. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Luke start the ball game. So, we'll see. Luke's ability to hold runners not nearly the same as Logan's. But again, this is probably a ball game you can win without having to worry about that. I mentioned Jeffrey Brown earlier. Jeff, 321 average, leads the team with 50 hits and an average as well. Not a big extra base guy, pretty much a singles guy. Just got 4 walks. And I told you guys before about his ability to steal some bases. Guy's done a pretty good job for him, for sure. Crosby Jones, the only other regular that has a batting average over 300. He's hitting 305, 43 hits, 7 doubles, a couple triples, and a couple dingers, 16 ribbies. You get into some RBI guys a little bit deeper here, and Ryan McCarthy is a guy that has been one of their most prolific extra base guys. 11 doubles, a triple, and 7 home runs, which leads the team. Also has 27 RBI. That's a team lead as well. He's also a guy that's willing to let you walk him. He has 21 walks on the year, but he is a bit of a swing and miss guy, 47 Ks, which also is the high mark for the team. So it's kind of a feast and famine thing there with Ryan. Cole Simpson is hitting 268, 3 doubles, 3 dingers, and just the 20 RBIs. And outside of that, it's pretty pedestrian. I mean, it really is. I mean, you don't expect a team that's got 11 wins to be good offensively, right? Not sure who we'll see pitching-wise. I'm sure they won't throw their weekend guys. Their weekend guys, Jake Pilarski, Cameron Reeves, Latham Todd, all those guys have really struggled despite the fact that they're guys that are eating up some innings for them. None of them have a winning record. Pilarski, 17 appearances, 10 starts, just 2-2 on the year. Looking a little bit deeper here for starts in the midweek, Devin Beckley is a guy that might get to start. He's got a 6.87 ERA and a 2-5 record. 6 starts on the year. Zach Jones, a guy that's got 5 starts on the year, 0-5 with an 8.80 ERA. So this could be a ball game that kind of gets away, pretty early. I mean, obviously these guys have not played a lot of Southeastern Conference competition, and when they have, it's been South Carolina, and you know how that is. You're not really motivated to play a lot of those ball games. But as a staff, 6.58 ERA as a staff, and they just don't have a lot of guys out here that are putting up big numbers, nor would you expect them to. I've allowed 375 hits and 336 innings pitching, so they're giving up just over a hit per inning. Allowed 293 runs, 246 of those are earned, so that's nearly 50 unearned runs. Says a lot about their defensive efforts there. They have walked opponents 201 times. Their opponents have walked 105, so you're talking almost a differential of 100 there. They have struck out 308 hitters, and that's less than a strikeout per inning. We're used to seeing people that are regularly striking out one and possibly two per inning. They've allowed 79 doubles, 11 triples, and 33 home runs, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, and 280 as a team batting against them. They have the 51 hit by pitches. It's just one of those things you look at, it kind of jumps out, doesn't make a lot of sense. So, again, it's just something else that we'll kind of watch as we kind of move forward with it. But not a great team in any regard. Quickly looking here at the couple fielding things, just so just to kind of give you an idea of here where the weaknesses are. They have had a handful of guys make errors. Noah Mitchell's the guy that's got 6 errors on the team. Brooks O'Brien with 10. Tilo Skoll with 10. Logan Taplett with 10. So it's not limited to 1 or 2 players. It's kind of spread throughout the lineup. So, again, we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about this team because the bottom line is State should go in there and really be able to kind of stretch your legs a little bit, probably get a lot of playing time for some guys. And that's, listen, when you take all these guys on the road, and if you saw the social media video they sent out, everybody gets off the plane and they got on their professional jerseys, and some guys have on NFL jerseys, and other guys have baseball and basketball. This is a fun trip, but it's also a business trip. And I think it's probably good to kind of get away from Starkville for a little bit. Now, we can say what we want to about, nobody really pays attention to social media, but that's not true. Those guys, as well as I do, they know they're projected to be a top 8 national seed. They're projected to host a regional and a super regional provided they win. There are a lot of people that understand, hey, look, we can see the standings. We're a game behind Arkansas for the SEC lead. They understand what's at stake. They also understand when they come out here and play in front of you guys, you're talking 8, 9, 10,000 people. And you'd much rather have those guys yelling for you than yelling against you. But there's a reason you all are showing up, and it's not just because you love baseball, but it's because of the fact that you understand that this team's got a lot to play for. They'll go out there, and we may have enough fans tomorrow night to take over the stadium. Those are things you think about, the smaller places like this. I don't know if they fully appreciate, what we're going to bring. We're going to have a lot of people there. And just kind of running some numbers here for you, the average crowd, it's absolutely ludicrous. They played VMI over the weekend. The Sunday game, they had 617 people. Looking at some midweek games they had, when they played Jacksonville, 248 people showed up. 248. The only time that they have played in front of big crowds this year is when they were on the road at South Carolina, and then the one time South Carolina came to their place early in the year, they put down 1,500, and that might just be capacity. When they went and played at South Carolina, it was 1,938. So it's not going to be what it has been. So you Bulldogs that are going to go make the ball game, you might be willing to take over the stadium. We probably expect to get a lot of maroon and white cheer as the game goes along there. But we've invested a lot of time talking about this ball game, but it should be a blowout. Simple as that. And then we'll get ready to go over and play Columbia, South Carolina, and we'll have a full preview on the Gamecocks on Friday. I'm eager to get there. I have never covered a game of any kind at South Carolina. And John Mangum and some other baseball dads that I know and trust have said, you know what, Steve, the only thing around the conference, a lot of people say, well, we think we've got the second best stadium. South Carolina does. And so I'm eager to kind of get over there and see it for myself. I have covered baseball in just about every venue in the Southeastern Conference. And so I feel like that I've got a pretty good idea of what everybody else has. I know I haven't been to Missouri except for football, But I know enough people that'll tell you that have told me Missouri is the worst in the conference. They're just not committed to baseball up there, and it shows. It absolutely shows. But when you get around the league here and you get to see the things that aren't on TV, it gives you a deeper appreciation for what we have. But I'm told, that South Carolina really has a nice park. And so we'll get over there and check it out and hopefully go over there and win a couple ball games. But, I like Chris Lemonis' approach. Talking to him on Monday, we spoke at length about the series and just, listen, sometimes it's good to get on the road, and we're a good road team. We're a team that goes out there and competes. And so I think getting out there a couple days early and kind of getting over the stress and anxiety of traveling and that long bus ride to get all that stuff done. And we charter this stuff anyway. But my point being is that you have the travel day today. You get there and you get off the plane, and then you've got, Wednesday, a day to kind of chill. You're already there on game day. So you're not showing up, for a non-conference game, a couple hours beforehand. And so all that's done. So I think in many ways this is kind of an end of the semester break, but also a chance for Lemonis and them to kind of just get on the road with their guys. Listen, all due respect to you ladies, but sometimes it's good to kind of get away. And so you get them away from their girlfriends, and they don't have to study, and they don't have study halls, they don't have anything else going on. They can just focus on baseball. And I think these are the kind of trips that kind of draw you together as a team. There's a lot left to play for Mississippi State during the month of May. There was so much of the discussion when the May 10th date came out about the tournament, right? Everybody was talking about our strength of schedule, and it's like, why couldn't this happen in May? And, all that's good. It's all well and good. And everybody said, we're going to have to earn it. I mean, it's as simple as that. If State's going to host, we're going to have to earn the right to do that. Nobody's just going to say, hey, well, listen, they should win a bunch of games in May, so let's give them a host spot. And when that announcement was made, and Kendall Rogers is the one that made it, and Kendall does a great job. I consider Kendall a friend. But when Kendall first put that out there, people began to panic. They didn't fully appreciate because they only read the first tweet. You know what I'm talking about? Because nobody ever does that, right? They didn't read the subsequent tweets when we tried to explain it a little more in detail. They didn't read the article. They just read that, everything's going to be predetermined and we're going to get screwed in this deal. We're not going to get screwed. But we had to go on the road, and we took care of Auburn. We swept them. Then we had Ole Miss come in. Many of you guys are worried about that. I was not. We win that series 2-1. And we got whipped that Saturday. I mean, there's no backing down from that. We got whipped. The KZ was outstanding, and we just didn't pitch it well either. One of Bednar's worst starts of the year. And then we go to Vandy, and we have to get one, and we do. We'd love to have gotten 2, but we got 1. And then we sweep A&M. And so now you get into this situation now because these decisions about the hosting locations, the 20 they're going to do, because what they're doing and the reason behind that, because let's say for an example, let's say, and let me pull up the D1 baseball projections here just so we can speak. We're going to speak hypothetically, but we can also speak, with a little more authority when we have maybe a school to talk about. But, let's say if you kind of pigeonhole yourself into 16, it's okay. These are definitely the 16 teams and locations. And then if somebody goes in the tank, then all of a sudden you may have somebody hosting a regional they're not playing in. And so by giving themselves 20, the 20 host locations gives you a little wiggle room. So you're going to go from 20, and then you're going to pick your 16 from there. So let's take a look here. Right now, East Carolina is listed as the final host spot at 16. Okay? So let's take a look at East Carolina here. Okay? So let's say you give them a host site, and they're actually 30-9, so they've got a great record right now overall. And they've got a strong record in their conference, certainly worthy of hosting. Well, they've got Tulane coming up. They got a 4-game set against Tulane, and Tulane's projected to be in the field. Well, what if Tulane goes in there and wins 3 or 4? Well, now all of a sudden, that team's probably not in a position to host. Then they go on the road to play Cincinnati, who's not a great team, but let's say they go over there and drop a couple games there. And then they got South Florida. So you got 3 4-game weekends left. So that's 12 games. What if they lose 7 of those games? Well, now all of a sudden, they're not in a great spot. Now all of a sudden you've given them the opportunity to host, and they're not worthy of hosting because they go in the tank in the month of May. And so because of the fact that you've got this, these 4 extra teams there, that eliminates the possibility of a team that, maybe somebody gets hurt or whatever, and then all of a sudden they go in the tank in the month of May, and then they still get the benefit of hosting a regional, even though they're a team that perhaps is a little bit questionable right now. So it makes sense for them to do that. Announce 20, and then we'll pare it down to 16 as we get a little closer. And so that to me, that makes perfect sense. And so Mississippi State is going to host. You can go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that now. Unless we have the collapse of all collapses, we're going to host. But when these 20 are named on Monday, we fully expect to be in there, and it won't be seeded. Okay, and that's sometimes from year to year we kind of forget. It's just like there was, in the SEC tournament every year, they announce the 16 regional host sites. They don't announce the seeds; they just announce the host sites. And then once the tournament is announced, they announce the top 8 national seeds, and then they kind of who is who in each quadrant. And so basically what we're going to get now is 20 potential host sites without seeding. And then as we get down to the end, we'll have 16, and then from there, the 8 super regional sites will be determined. And there's still so much confusion about that. And I'm going to spend a little bit to explain this as best I can. It's not anything we need to worry about right now. I know that's impossible for us to do because it means so much to us. But if we host a regional at Mississippi State, and we fully expect to be a top 8 national seed, there's no reason to think we won't be, then we're going to host a super regional. I know some say, well, yes, Steve, theoretically, listen to me. We're a top 8 national seed. We're hosting. The next road game would be Omaha if that situation unfolded like that. So relax. Let's take it one step at a time. The next step is to beat Citadel, and then we'll go to South Carolina and do our best to win the series out there. Can we sweep them? Yeah, we can, but they kind of pitch it backwards a little bit. They're a little bit stronger on Sundays. I don't know if you guys know this. In their last 8 series, and that dates back to the final non-conference series of the year against Texas, they're 1-7 on Friday. 1-7. And so you're throwing McLeod on Friday, and you got to think, okay, this is a team that hadn't done exceptionally well, so maybe McLeod goes out there and gets us, 3, 4, 5 innings. Then we can get Brandon Smith to give us a couple, and bring Lennon Sims in, we'll win the ball game. And then we got Bednar going on Saturday, and I think all of us would agree I've got the most confidence, and you guys have the most confidence in Bednar throwing Saturday. So they're bad on Friday, so we win that one, and then we win on Saturday. Well, Sunday's kind of a gravy game. And you got Fristow going in, and one of their better pitchers, I believe it's their number 2, may even be their number 1 going on Sundays. And I hadn't done enough research to kind of look at all that, and we'll talk about that more on Friday. But this kind of sets up well for us. I mean, it really does. And the thing that I keep going back to, and I think because of the fact that we're so familiar with Mississippi State, it's real easy to get caught up in that whole thing about familiarity breeds contempt. We got the deepest bullpen in the country. We do. And it's easy when they go out there in a ball game when we're winning big and they don't throw strikes and you throw some young guys, whatever. But when the game is on the line, we've been outstanding. We have been. We've been able to shut things down. And Landon Sims can't throw every game, can't throw every inning, can't throw every pitch. He'd love to, but he can't. But it is almost an embarrassment of wealth in that bullpen for us. And when we are on, we are almost impossible to beat. And so once we get a lead, and all of a sudden we turn it over to the bullpen there, Preston Johnson goes out there and eats up a couple innings for you, and Landon Sims gets the final couple innings, and then there's a ball game for you. So I feel good about our chances in Columbia. I think it's going to be a great week for us. If I had to call it today, I'd say we'd probably go 3-1 on a week. And that's what we need to do at a bare minimum. We don't need to go over there and lose the series. I think if we go 3-1 on the week and we come back, I think we were, again, assured ourselves of a top 8 national seed. We got Mizzou coming in next week. And we fully expect to sweep them. But we just got to avoid going over there and losing that series. And I think we're in good shape. And again, we'll talk about that more on Friday. So I heard from Brandon from JohnnyPacker.com. You guys know, and I've had some of you guys reach out regularly to say, hey, listen, Steve, I checked those glasses out. Can you help me out with the promo code? Well, Brandon comes through in the clutch. Brandon says, hey, Steve, listen, I got a promo code for Boneyard listeners. It'll save you 10%. 10%. Anytime, listen, if you were going to buy them anyway and they say, hey, let me knock 10% off, wouldn't you take it? You absolutely would. Your promo code is Boneyard. Go to JohnnyPacker.com today, use promo code Boneyard, and take 10% off your order. And a portion of your order is donated to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. These are Mississippi State people that have put a company together that provide quality eyewear. I told you guys that they sent me some sunglasses. I have to wear prescription lenses. And so I gave them away. And I'm told they're the most comfortable sunglasses I've ever worn. Light on the face, don't pinch the nose, good durable construction. Because most of the times what happens, let's go pick up a pair of sunglasses at the gas station. And maybe that's not your plan, but that's what you do. Or I'm just going to go up to Walmart and get some. Listen, stop doing that. There's a difference between price and cost, right? Because what happens is you end up buying these cheap sunglasses and they don't last. And the next time you got to go to the beach or the next time you take a trip or the next time you go to the ball game, you're buying another pair of cheap glasses. And before you know it, you spent more money on inferior sunglasses. Spend a little money, get some good glasses, get them at Johnny Packer. Go today, JohnnyPacker.com, promo code Boneyard. And again, these are Bulldogs. I believe in doing business with Bulldogs, and you should too. Again, JohnnyPacker.com, promo code Boneyard. Today's top 10 list, Randy, I may mess this up. I think it's Randy Preuss. Randy Preuss, Preuss, contacted me on Twitter about a week ago. And basically said, hey, look, Steve, you got good taste in music, and I do. I don't apologize for it. Pretty well versed when it comes to music. And I know there's a few guys out there and say, hey, Steve, you're really into all these 80s hair bands. That's not just what I'm into, but it's what I grew up with. Listen, when I was in the 70s, listen, man, I was into the Eagles and into the Doobie Brothers and all that stuff all up into the 80s and Steely Dan and bands like that. I was raised right. I didn't listen to the New Kids on the Block, man. I didn't listen to Debbie Gibson or Tiffany. I watched them on MTV when they came on. I was a teenager. Goodness. But my point being is I've always been one that knows how to rock. So Randy says, you know what, Steve, how about you give me a song from 10 of your favorite bands? And I don't know if this is my top 10 bands because it changes in time. I don't have a Whitesnake song on here. And there's sometimes I'll listen to Whitesnake and I think, man, this is the greatest. And then other times I think, there's only 2 or 3 good songs on this album. Then the next time I listen, I'm in a better mood for it. I don't have any Foreigner on here, even though I'm a big Foreigner fan. I don't have any Metallica on here. I don't have any Suicidal Tendencies on here either. I'm a big Suicidal fan too. Saw them with Queensryche and Jackson with many of you when all the cool kids got together to go to a rock show. I love Suicidal. I do. I think I used to have a Suicidal Tendencies hat. Matter of fact, I think I was probably one of the first people in Mississippi to have a Suicidal Tendencies hat. Well, I'd go to the mall at North Park back when you could go to the mall at North Park, and I would go out there, and all of a sudden, all these little kids from, all these private school kids in Jackson were like, hey, where'd you get the hat? Well, I mail ordered it from the Suicidal Tendencies merch shop. Well, they're not on the list either. But if you want to know my favorite Suicidal Tendencies song, it's You Can't Bring Me Down. That's off Lights, Camera, Revolution. So this is kind of an eclectic group here, okay? I've got, there are some 80s hair bands on here. There's also some modern rock bands on here. There's some 90s stuff on here. And there's even some, I guess you would say, synth pop on here. I didn't put Duran Duran on here, even though I thought long and hard about it. You say, Steve, you're a Duran Duran fan? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I love Duran Duran, and I am unashamed to say it. If you want to know my favorite Duran Duran song, it's Ordinary World. But back in the day, it was the Reflex. All right, so let's get into the top 10. And some of this is going to surprise you. So number 10 on my list is a hair band. Shocker. But it's Firehouse. And I have every Firehouse album. I have them all. Even the ones that were released here in the last couple of years. I think there are 7 of them. I have them all. I don't know them all that well, the more recent stuff, but I'm kind of OCD about that. Like if I love a band and they have a new album, I have to have it. And you can say, well, Steve, it's so easy to go to Apple Music. That's true, but when Apple Music crashes in the apocalypse, I'll still have tunes to listen to. I'll still have my CDs. I still buy CDs from bands that I still love, and I keep them, the hard copy. So Firehouse, I have all their albums. I have seen them in concert about a half a dozen times. I love Bill Leverty and CJ Snare. I think they're great. But the song that I went with, and so a lot of these songs too, I'm not going to give you necessarily signature songs. That would be the lazy way to do it because I am a fan. I'm going to go with some songs that you're familiar with, but they may not be the signature song. Because right now many of you are thinking, oh, he's going to go with Don't Treat Me Bad or Love of a Lifetime. You're wrong. I'm going with Reach for the Sky. That's off the second album. Love that song. Matter of fact, I listened to it a couple days ago. I almost went with a deep cut off Firehouse 3 called Two Sides. There are 2 sides to every story. So don't make up your mind until you hear it from me. But I went with Reach for the Sky. Number 10, Firehouse is Reach for the Sky. Number 9, a band from Knoxville, Tennessee. One of my favorites, and I have not talked about them enough on this show. Because some of you say, well, Steve, you get the long hair and tattoos and, wears cargo shorts and concert shirts every day. He's lost in the 80s. Well, you're wrong. The band is 10 years. 10 years from Knoxville, Tennessee. I've met Jesse Hayek probably half dozen times. Got a 10 years tattoo. You guys are familiar with the Highway 98 tattoo on my right hand, just above that. I've got a 10 years tattoo from their album, Killing All That Holds Me. And so I love 10 years. I love Jesse. I think that he is a tremendous songwriter and vocalist. And every time I've been around him, he's been so down to earth. And it's kind of cool, too, that he remembers me. And I guess I am pretty memorable at this point in my life. But Jesse is phenomenal. I've seen them play acoustic sets. I've seen them play live. I saw them play festivals. I've seen them play clubs. I've seen them play stadiums, arenas, everywhere. And they're great. And so if you get a chance to go watch 10 years, you should too. And if you're unfamiliar with 10 years, you need to get going. You need to get involved. You need to check them out today. And let me tell you the song you can start with. It's really the song that started it all for them. And it is about Jesse's cousin, Brad, that was a child actor. He played Mark Swag in the movie The Client with Susan Sarandon, Tommy Lee Jones. You're familiar with that. But it's about his demise. Brad ultimately killed himself. And the song is called Wasteland. 10 years, Wasteland. Number 8, another band we don't talk a whole lot about on the show. I don't even know if we've done a top 10 list on them, and I'll get Roy to check, and if we hadn't, we'll do one soon. But it's Rage Against the Machine. I don't necessarily agree with all the politics that Tom Morello has. I don't, but that's the case with anybody, really. If we all sat down long enough, we could find some things to disagree about. But Rage Against the Machine was a very, very important band in my life in the 1990s. And I remember them going to play at the Republican and Democratic National Conventions. And I felt like our generation's voice was being heard. There was a change in the political climate because we felt like our generation was kind of standing up and being counted for the first time. And so I have every Rage album, and I love them all. There's probably not a song on any of those albums that I don't like. There are some I like more than others. Could have gone with a number of songs here, but I went with one off Evil Empire. I went with People of the Sun. I love that opening riff. I love what Tom Morello has done. He is a phenomenal guitar player, unlike anybody else in the genre. Number 7, a more modern rock band. It's been around for a while. I've met these guys too. I think LeJon Witherspoon of Seven Dust is one of the more underappreciated vocalists in rock music today. Not only is he an incredible singer and performer, he's an incredibly nice guy. I've met Morgan, the whole group. They're absolutely great. Clint, everybody's great. Met them at Rocklahoma and got a chance to spend some time with them. And I'll be honest with you, I think they thought I was in a band, so they thought they should be nice to me. But either way, they were great. And LeJon Witherspoon is one of those people you look at and you say, you know what, it's you meet so many superstars at times and you think they're all going to be just kind of, above, what you'd expect. He is so much like me and you. He just happens to have a really cool job. But with Seven Dust, I went with my absolute favorite song, and there's a bunch of them. I love Seven Dust. I have every Seven Dust album, at least digitally. I have some hard copies. But I went with Black. Black is without a doubt my favorite Seven Dust song. Last time I saw them over in Montgomery, Alabama, they opened with Black, and I thought I was going to lose it. Number 6, going back to a hair band here, it's Rat. And the homie Sam Denton is probably the biggest Rat fan that I know, so shout out to you, Sam. I've seen Rat a handful of times too. Saw them a couple years ago at Rocklahoma. It was the first time they had been back together in years. And it was great. Thought Stephen did a great job. I think Stephen Piercy has the coolest voice of the 80s metal bands. I really do. There's nobody quite like him. Could have gone a number of directions here. I decided to go with one of the great songs off the Detonator album. It's Lovin' You's a Dirty Job, and I'm the Man to Do It. Truer words have never been spoken. All right, number 5, and this is, again, a more modern rock band. This basically, we've talked about them before. We've had a top 10 list. I have not met these guys, and I hadn't met Rat either. Well, I guess I met Warren DeMartini at the Texas Club in Baton Rouge years ago when Jizzy Pearl was a singer. And I guess John Corabi was playing with them back then. Bobby Blotzer was with them then, so I met Bobby and Warren. So I met a couple of those guys. I guess Robbie Crane was playing bass back then. But I haven't met Alter Bridge, but I have talked to Miles Kennedy on the phone, which is really kind of a cool thing, is when Slash and Miles and the New Conspirators were putting their second album out. They had Slash and Miles on, and I just decided to call up Sirius XM to see if I could get on the air and ask him a question, and I did, and I got to talk to Miles Kennedy, which is really, really cool because I think Miles Kennedy is the greatest vocalist in rock music today. Love Alter Bridge, absolutely love everything Miles has done. His solo stuff is a little bit different, but Alter Bridge is one of those bands with staying power. If you are a rock fan today and you don't have Alter Bridge on your playlist, you are cheating yourself. They're very, very positive. Miles is a guy that has done a lot of stuff to kind of encourage people to get help for mental health type issues. And matter of fact, his wife is a mental health expert. And so very solid people. And Mark Tremonti, of course, the greatest guitar player of this generation, without a doubt. I went with Addicted to Pain on this one. Addicted to Pain off the Fortress album. I almost went Isolation, but we've talked about that on the show a few times. So I wanted to give you guys something a little bit different. Addicted to Pain. Number 4, and this is probably a surprise for some of you, but it's Depeche Mode. I absolutely love Depeche Mode. I'm a Depeche Mode freak. I think David Gahan is absolutely phenomenal. Martin Gore, one of the first people to ever play a synclavier. He is an absolute genius of a songwriter. It is incredible the stuff they came up with. They were like at the forefront of the sampling revolution. And rather than take other people's stuff, they would find these obscure little sounds, and then they would make a song out of them. And you can go back and find a lot of that stuff on the album, Some Great Reward. That's when I thought Martin Gore really kind of took the next step as a musician. I could have gone with it with probably 20 different songs here. But I decided to go with the one that I think best personifies me, and that's Walking in My Shoes. And that's off the album Songs of Faith and Devotion. That is a must-have album. Everybody has Violator, and rightfully so. Violator was that was like a big crossover hit for them. It kind of took them out of the clubs and put them in the arenas. And Violator, of course, is the one with Personal Jesus and Enjoy the Silence and Policy of Truth and Halo. And it's just a great album. But Songs of Faith and Devotion, I think, built on Violator and then made Depeche Mode superstars. I think that a lot of people expected them to kind of flop after Violator. They said, oh, well, those kind of go back to what they were with Music for the Masses, which was great too. But Songs of Faith and Devotion, I thought they really arrived as a band. All right, number 3, and I have had this as my Gene's Page avatar now for, I guess, 10 years or so. But it's the band Shinedown. I'm a huge Shinedown fan. I got 3 Shinedown tattoos. I have met Shinedown. I've talked to Brent a handful of times. Zach Myers as well. Got autographs, everything. I'm a Shinedown nerd. I admit it. I will admit that they have mellowed a little bit in recent albums. I think the earlier stuff with Jason Todd and Brad in the band. Of course, there was a lot of dysfunction that went along with Jason. But I thought a lot of that sickness kind of helped the music. And then Brent said himself that once he got clean and sober, he struggled. He actually relapsed because he didn't know that he could write music without drugs again. And so that's unfortunate, but they have rebounded. And that's one of the things that happens, too, is once guys get money, they get therapy, and all of a sudden a lot of their problems go away, and the music kind of suffers. It's a shame, but that's the reality of it. I thought they had a really great comeback album with Attention. But I've been a Shinedown fan from the very beginning, probably one of the first Shinedown fans. Just kind of found out about them by chance through a friend in the industry. And next thing I know, they're playing them on Sirius XM. But at that time, it was just Sirius Octane. And the song that got me into the band was a song called Burning Bright. And it was around the time my dad was getting really, really sick. And so when I would feel really down and feel sorry for myself, I would listen to this song. And I've always said that if I ever got lyrics tattooed on my body, there was a phrase in that song that I would use. And ultimately, I didn't. I actually got lyrics from the number 2 song on our list today. But I'm a huge Shinedown fan, and I think that they're kind of unfairly maligned by some people. If you get deeper into their stuff, and especially those earlier albums, I mean, everybody knows 45 and Second Chance, and that stuff gets put on Top 40 radio. But you get into songs like Stranger Inside and Begin Again and Left Out, Breaking Inside off the Sound of Madness album. There's just so many great songs on there that there's not a bad song. These are the albums you can just kind of put on and let them play. Number 2, Soundgarden. And I found Soundgarden at a very important time in my life. And listen, it's like I explained to people before, I heard about Soundgarden when they first got started. When Ultra Mega OK had come out, and then Loud Love had come out. And so it's like, okay, well, I got an idea who these guys are. Hands All Over was being played on MTV. I had heard Soundgarden. I had not listened to Soundgarden until I went to rehab. And I had really discovered Chris Cornell and kind of dove into the catalog. And this guy's singing my song. And really felt some type of sonic connection with Chris and his music. And so I got a big Chris Cornell tattoo on my leg. Matter of fact, when it's all said and done, I'll have a left leg sleeve of Chris Cornell because he is that important to me. And the day that he died is one of the saddest days of my life. And you say, well, Steve, how could you feel that way? Well, it's just because he was the soundtrack of my recovery for the better part of 25 years. And so I went with the classic Fell on Black Days off the Super Unknown album. It is a song where Chris is very vulnerable, and I think that's one of the reasons that he was so appealing to people is because he shared his emotions and so freely. And he shared his pain with all of us. And I think that's one of the reasons he was so easily identifiable. But number 1, my favorite band of all time, it's got to be the Pet Shop Boys. No, it's not the Pet Shop Boys, silly. No, it's not. It's the Backstreet Boys. No, it's not them either. It's Motley Crue. You guys knew that before I told you. It's Motley. Got the Motley Crue leg sleeve. I got a Motley Crue license plate. I have met Vince. I haven't met anybody else in the band. I hope to meet Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee someday. It costs a fortune to go meet them, and I just hope that I can meet them by chance, or maybe perhaps one day I'll just get lucky enough to run into them. Nikki Sixx, of course, to me is the ultimate rock star. And, Crue is it for me. They're the band that really kind of turned the screws for me and kind of got me in the middle. And so I didn't go with the traditional hits for Motley because we've done so much of that on the show. I went with Primal Scream, which was really the single off the Greatest Hits album. They had Too Fast for Love and Shout the Devil, Theater of Pain, Girls, 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 and then they had the Greatest Hits album after Dr. Feelgood, excuse me. And so it was kind of an interesting point because Primal Scream came out where they had been on the road with Whitesnake for about a year and a half, and I think you can kind of hear some Whitesnake influence in Primal Scream because Primal Scream's a little bit different than anything else in the catalog. And so I really dig that track, and I think you will too. So that's Top 10 List. Again, brought to you by the fine folks at johnnypacker.com. Go buy your sunglasses today. Use promo code Boneyard to save 10%. All right. So, Randy, I hope I did you good there. I hope you enjoyed the list. I hope that's exactly what you're looking for, and maybe we scratched the niche for you. Okay. Next segment of the show brought to you by the fine folks at Campus Bookmart. They've been with me a long time. I've been with them a long time. Signed a lot of books over there, and every time I go in there, they treat me like a much bigger deal than I am. they'll do the same thing for you. And it's not just because I sign books. It's because they're so genuine in what they do. A lot of places you go, there's a lot of turnover, I mean, that's retail in a small town, right? It's retail in a college town. You have people that come in, they get a job, they work for a semester, and they either move back home or, academic workload gets too high. But at Campus Book Mart, I mean, there's some staying power there. I mean, there really are. I mean, Stan and Man's been there forever and a day. Miss Kathy Brown, the lovely, talented Susie, and we hope she never leaves. And then there's Cheyenne. Cheyenne works there and helps run the register and runs all the social media stuff. And these people are kind of vested in the business, and they're vested in you. They want you to have a good experience. Great prices, great product. Kathy Brown, an incredible buyer. If there's anything out there with Mississippi State on it, she's got it or she can get it for you. Go peruse their fine selections at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays, and that is BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. Get you free shipping on all orders over $50. Any order less than $50, absolutely incomplete. Go do it today. Campusbookmart.net. Listen, it's getting warm. The kids need summer clothes for vacation mom anyway. Rather than go spend that money with Amazon or some off-brand company where you're probably not even going to get officially licensed merchandise, spend it with a Starkville vendor, okay? Spend it with the hometown folks. That's campusbookmart.net. All right. So a couple things I wanted to get into, and then we'll have our recruiting update to close the show. Fred Brown, downtown Freddie Brown. Fred Brown from Jim Hill High School. It was a guy that came to Mississippi State, kind of a lightly recruited guy. It's like he was out of Jim Hill, and a lot of people kind of questioned why we would take him. And he was in the Brandon Holloway class. We took Brandon as a slot. We took Fred as an outside guy. And I remember when we committed Fred, I kept telling everybody, I said, listen, we're going to take this guy. I mean, we're going to take him. And people are like, oh, I don't know, Steve, I don't know. And then he goes to Big Dog Camp, and he absolutely lights it up, and everybody's like, hey, when are we going to take this guy? When are we going to take him? Well, we did. And Fred actually had, had some issues, when he was at State and got dismissed from school, and it was unfortunate. But he didn't let that define him. And it's so interesting, too. It was a sad thing. I saw it, and I'm going to be critical of these people. Matter of fact, I'm going to pull it up. I don't want you to read the article because I don't want to give them clicks. I'm going to pull it up. But it's one of these SI sites, and I'm not saying anything about anybody that I know that works for SI. But this guy, David Beauclair, I guess is his name. And rather than talk about what Fred Brown has done as a pro or anything else, he decided to kind of bring up this whole thing about Fred getting dismissed for violation of the honor code. And I think that is unfortunate. Why should he have to live a life sentence for that? That's been, goodness, that was back in 2014, I guess? We're talking something seven years ago. And so those are the things that I look at, and I just begin to think to myself, how crappy are you as a journalist that this is what you focus on? And I guess it's one of those things where it gets you clicks. So, well, you got kicked out of college. There are a lot of people that didn't graduate college, and there are a lot of people that broke the honor code. But the fact that he happened to be a college football player, it was just bigger news. And so I'm not trying to excuse what Fred did, but goodness gracious, he's a grown man now. And those are the things that really, really upset me. It's like, number one, because I know Fred, and Fred and I had some interaction on Twitter, and every time that I see him in town, every time I see him, he comes up, shakes my hand, gives me a hug. Every time. That's the kind of guy he is. I mean, you would think, okay, well, he's in the NFL now. He doesn't owe any of us beat writers anything. And you know what? He doesn't. He doesn't owe me anything. But he remembers the fact that I went and watched him play a high school football game when he was a junior, and he was just trying to get discovered. I'd heard about him. Some people had told me, hey, this is a guy that's even before Mississippi State offered him. And so I go watch a kid play, and it's like they can't even get him to football, and he faced double and triple coverage all night long. And if they ever got the ball to him, it was phenomenal. He was so great, he could elevate, he could make the difficult catch. So he has now signed a multi-year deal with the Tennessee Titans. And so, I don't think they've disclosed terms of the deal just yet. But, Fred's a guy that has been with the Broncos for a while. He was a practice squad guy and got on the field some in 2019. Matter of fact, I've got his numbers right here. He didn't have a lot of catches, but he was a guy that played, and played a little bit last year too. So he's a guy too that probably a value pick for them. You could get a veteran guy that's been around a little bit, but kind of looking here at Fred's numbers, looking at his Wikipedia page, I guess it's good work if you can get it. Fred, according to Wikipedia, his salary, crazy. Last year, $397,000 for a guy that didn't get on the field a whole lot. But happy for Fred, and just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that too, about that. It's important to understand there's always going to be people that dig these things up. No matter what you do in life, no matter how successful you could be, he could take and donate his salary to solving literacy problems in the state of Mississippi. But that there always going to be somebody out there trying to get some clickbait, to get you to go click on their article and say, "Oh, latest guy was kicked out of college, idiot." It just makes me angry. It really does. Really does. All right, so moving along from that, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, because I'll get angry, and it's already a long show. I know you guys. I get so many people say, "Steve will never apologize for the show running long." We're happy to do it, but I don't want to get in the habit of having these 90-minute shows. So I touched on it a little bit. On Monday, we had Colin Hill and Marquise Spencer both were drafted. And, here's what I would say about all that. I know some people have some strong opinions, about some of this stuff. And I just think at some point we got to put it behind us. A lot of people, I like Colin Hill and he did that. Listen, there's a time to kind of let bygones be bygones, and this is it. What do we gain by holding a grudge at this point? I had some people tell me when Mike Leach was hired that Colin Hill would be fortunate to make it through spring practice. Because Colin was a guy that was a little bit emotional at times, and it just wasn't going to fly, with the new coaching staff. Joe was a guy that would kind of give Colin some room to kind of do that kind of stuff, and maybe to his detriment. But the fact that Colin Hill opted out is not different than a lot of other people. The circumstances behind it are. But at the end of the day, it's over now. He's not here anymore. And my hope is that he'll go and have a great career and do the things that he needs to do to kind of support his family. And that's it. Just kind of move forward. I think we're just wasting a lot of negative energy, focusing on that. This is a guy, too, that, came in here and did the best he could for 3.5 years. Didn't have to come back, but he did. Didn't work out the way we wanted, but he did. He did come back. So running down some other stuff here, too. I don't know if you guys knew about all this. Of course, Marquise goes to the Broncos. Kobe Jones signed a free agent deal with Atlanta. And good for Kobe. Kobe is a guy, too, that I think Kobe probably hangs on as a practice squad guy. He'll be a great guy in the locker room. And so he and Errol Thompson both, I guess Marcus Murphy, too. Yeah, Marcus Murphy, Errol Thompson, and Kobe Jones all headed the Atlanta Falcons. That's pretty cool. Darian Parker headed to Chicago Bears. I won't be surprised if Darian doesn't make the team. I think that he's a guy that will obviously be a guard, but he's a quiet blue-collar guy that'll go in there. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be trouble, and I really do. I think that he's got a good chance to make the team. And Greg Allen headed up there to Seattle. I think he's got a real challenge in front of him. Osiris Mitchell signs with Dallas, joins Dak out there. That'll be interesting, for sure. So, not a lot of traction out there, but we didn't have a lot of guys that we expected to get drafted. I think we all kind of agreed that probably the best case scenario was to be 3 to get Errol and Marquise and Colin drafted. We got 2 of the 3, and they all went late. I think Colin probably went later than most people expected. I know some people sadly, some of our people were saying, "Oh, I hope he goes undrafted." I don't wish that on anybody. I really don't. I know it's very difficult to get those opportunities, and so, so I just don't see any point in being negative about that. So that's the latest from the pro side of things. And I don't know if you guys saw it too. 247 Sports had an article too about Dak Prescott saying that he could go play in a game right now. I don't know if that's true, but I like to hear that. I'm looking forward to seeing Dak back on the field. Absolutely. Okay, so let's wrap up with some recruiting. This segment of the show brought to you by the folks at Portico. Many of you have dreamed of one day moving back to or moving to Starkville for the first time. It's been one of those things that's been on your mind and say, hey, you know what? One day, maybe this is the day. Maybe now's the time to get serious about that. Make sure that you get your information. Portico, very conveniently located, just over just over a mile from campus, 1.1 miles from campus. Matter of fact, I was on Garrett Road today. Very easy to get to. You turn off of Highway 82 onto 12 like you're going to campus. The very first right takes you to Garrett Road. You cross over Old West Point Road. Next thing you know, there's Portico right there. 1.1 miles from campus. You can find a home that'll fit any size family within reason. If you got the Brady Bunch, it might be a little tight squeeze in there. But I'm going to encourage you to reach out to Brooks. Brooks is not going to steer you in the wrong direction. That's for sure. Brooks is a guy that cares about Mississippi State. Brooks is a guy that cares about you. Brooks is a guy that's invested in our community. Right behind the Hilton Garden Inn and Cryford Jeep dealership, if you're unfamiliar with the area I was talking about, it's going to be a 51-house residential development. Second phase of construction is getting going now. 1,300 to 2,000 square foot house, and that's more than enough for most of you. 2-bedroom, 2-bath, or 4-bedroom, 4-bath. If you need more information, and I'm sure you do, give Brooks a call. Brooks Bryan's phone number. And don't tell him I gave it to you. No, do tell him. He might even tell you some Bulldog baseball stories. Call him at 601-416-8075. Again, 601-416-8075. You'll be glad you did. Make Portico your next move. All right, so Mississippi State recruiting class currently ranked 11th in the country. We expect that to change. Okay, it's fun right now to talk about it because we don't ordinarily get off to such a good start. That's one of the conversations that I've had over at genespage.com message boards, and you need to get over there and help me kind of fight the good fight on a message board at times. But people are like, well, Steve, it's May. Yeah, you're right, it's May. Well, when's the last time we were in the top 15 in May? Can you tell me? Because I do keep up with that. And I can tell you it's been forever and a day. We'd rarely ever get off to this big a start. Dan Mullen did his best recruiting in the summer months. And so a lot of times, we would already kind of be trailing, and then we would kind of push toward the top 25. We're off to a good start, and we don't even have the 4 stars committed yet. And so that's one of the things the casual fans say, well, Steve, where are the 4 stars? They're coming. They're coming. Now, I don't expect to stay in the top 15. Certainly don't expect to push into the top 10 in the end. I mean, we may get a big commitment here in the next day or two, and who knows? Maybe that pushes you in the top 10, but we won't stay there. Okay, we're not going to stay there. But this is a class that should stay right around 20. I think you've got a really good chance to have a top 20 class. We've had 2 of those this century. Just let that sink in. Jackie Sherrill had 1. Dan Mullen had 1. We've had 2 top 20 classes this century. Now, I know Mike Leach has this reputation of not being a good recruiter. And I think a lot of that is rooted in the fact that he was recruiting in Lubbock, Texas, and Pullman, Washington. Well, now all of a sudden that he's here in Starkville, Mississippi, where you have better facilities than you had at both places, and there is a greater proximity to Power 5 football talent, you're seeing the benefit of it. Last year was a transition year for us, and we still had a top 25 class. And so now when you begin to kind of roll this thing forward and say, okay, well, now we're kind of getting a look at what Mike Leach can do when we have a good year in state and we've got some time to build some relationships. And I guess I give a lot of credit, too, for them kind of keeping our recruiting staff on. Of course, some of those guys have moved on. Mike Villagrana left to go to Marshall and joined Charles Huff. Mason Smith went back to his alma mater at OSU. Yeah, but Rod Gibson and the rest of the crew, and they're working hard. Andrea, Kai, the whole group. They're doing what they can to help you guys. And right now, they got the number 11 recruiting class in the country. And so you've got some relationships built. You've got some people that are out there working hard for you. And so the question now becomes, okay, what's next? I wrote an article on Tuesday. You may have read it. And I'll kind of give you the highlights here. We get Braden Locke committed as our quarterback over the weekend. There's only one school left in the SEC that's expected to take a quarterback that hadn't taken one, and that's Ole Miss. 12 of the 14 schools in the SEC have already committed a quarterback for 2022. The two that haven't, Arkansas and Ole Miss, and Arkansas doesn't plan to take one. So I don't say that as a criticism of Ole Miss. I'm just trying to show how complete the picture pretty much is. At this point, there's only one SEC quarterback spot available, and that's going to be at Ole Miss. And maybe that's helpful to them because they can kind of put that in their sales pitch and say, hey, listen, we're the last school that can provide you with the opportunity to play in the Southeastern Conference. And that's what I would say. We were being selective, kind of taking our time, looking for the right person. And so we believe you're that person, but we're the only school left that can give you the ability to play in the greatest cathedrals in all of college football. So we've got our quarterback committed, so what's next for us? Well, offensive line recruiting, I think you're going to see that take off in June. Now, the reason that I say that is June 4th is Big Dog Camp Day. Usually we would do the basic camps in June and then do Big Dog Camp is really the last camp day before summer vacation because then everybody came back and we got into fall camp. That's how we did it under Mullen. It was a little bit different under Joe. Matter of fact, we didn't even call it Big Dog Camp. We called it Top Dog Camp. I preferred Big Dog Camp. It made better sense. I'd rather be a big dog than a top dog, but I digress. I think it sounds a lot tougher. The Big Dog Camp is June 4th. And so there are probably about a dozen guys that are kind of being recruited for the last three spots. You got a couple of offensive linemen committed. Now, Jacarius Clayton is an OLDL out of Tupelo. And so he will probably get to cut his college teeth on the defensive line first. I think that's what he wants to do. And he says he's open to do it. He just wants a chance to play on the D-line. If it doesn't work out, he's willing to go play the O-line. And you got to love a guy like that, right? The guy just wants to be at Mississippi State, and he goes like, hey, Coach, this is what I really want to do. But if that didn't work out, I want to help a team. So I want to be able to play on the offensive line. So I'm willing to do what you need me to do. Now, the fact that he wants to go play on the D-line is fine, especially the fact that Gabe Cavazos is expected to rejoin the team here at the end of the month. Gabe, of course, was an early graduate, probably shouldn't have been, but he was. But he's expected to rejoin the team at the end of the month. And so now you got him back, and so now you're kind of even more okay with Clayton going and kind of getting started on the D-line. And if he worked his way back to the O-line, that's cool. If he sticks on the D-line, that's cool too. And then you got Jackson Cannon. And some people have said, hey, why would we take him so early? I think a lot of it's just you want to get when you're taking 5, you're going to take a developmental guy or two, and so you go ahead and get that done and kind of do some big game hunting. And then you get into camps, and there's always going to be one or two guys that emerge in camps. But offensive line recruiting, I think, is really going to take off in the month of June. Now, Trent Singleton's a guy we've talked about on this show several times. Trent, an athlete out of Raymond High School. I expect him to play defensive back, possibly safety. But he's a guy that plays some corner in high school because he is so athletic. And so I think that you'll see him to be a Bulldog before this month is over. And then we'll kind of work through some other things. Still got some guys we're working on, obviously, to finish up the 2021 class. Going to have a couple of guys sign blue shirt deals, and they'll count to 2022. But, it kind of is what it is at this point. I think we all feel pretty good about where things are headed. And just when we thought, okay, it'll slow down just a little bit, we should pick up at least one more commitment this month. And then I think June is going to be really big, especially in the trenches. And speaking of June, there's a lot of discussion that MRA linebacker Stone Blanton will make his decision in June. And based on the things that I've heard right now, I think Mississippi State's in a good spot with him. Not finished. It's not done yet. Got a good chance to get that done in June, I believe. And so let's say you pick up Trent Singleton in May. You pick up Stone Blanton in June. Well, now all of a sudden you're over halfway done. You're 13, and you got 2 guys who are going to sign blue shirts. It takes you to 15, so you got 10 spots left. You're going to fill some of those in the summer months because of the experience at camp. And then you're going to get into the season, you're probably chasing a half dozen guys. And so I like the approach right now. We have to finish. R.J. Moss is a guy, of course, is a 4-star guy. My best source down there told me he measured in at 6'3.5" last week, and I think if he comes to Mississippi State and measures in like that and has the camp showing that we expect, I believe he'll be a Bulldog by the end of June. So another 4-star guy. So be patient, be excited of where we are, but again, it's kind of like having a two possession lead in the second quarter of a ball game, right? We may get to the half with the lead. We want to get to the final whistle with the lead. That's what we're kind of working on now. So it's okay to be excited that we're doing well. Now we've got to finish well. We can't just go in the tank and say, okay, we're done. That's one of the things that makes this class a little different. In years past, like when Joe and them would get some things going early on, we kind of shoot our wide early and not have much to add on the back end. That's not the case this year. We got some big fish out there that we can still go get. Guys like Bryson Hurst, offensive lineman out of Gaucher, Don Terry Russell, defensive lineman out of Provine. So, we've got some 4-stars we can add to kind of add some bulk to this class. So, again, it's okay to feel good and be excited about where we are. We don't always have to be so downtrodden and think, well, it's not going to last. I'm glad I didn't date some of you guys. I'll be honest with you. I'm really glad that I didn't date somebody with that mentality because, I want a forever deal, okay? All right, so let's get out of here. It's late in the morning, and I got to get some rest. And so we'll be back with you guys on Friday. And, again, I'll record that show Thursday evening, so it'll probably show up on your app much earlier than normal because I'm going to try to get into bed because I got to get up really early and get on the road to South Carolina and see if I can't go help us win a ball game or two. All right, until then, let's all live our lives in a way we'll make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.